So I chose UVM because it's really known for being a fabulous pre-veterinary school. I knew I wanted to go to vet school when I applied, and I applied to the Tufts Veterinary School at the end of my sophomore year, which is a unique program that UVM has with Tufts, where you can apply for early acceptance and they will hold a spot for you for when you graduate. And I was actually accepted to vet school 2 years early, which was again amazing. So I continued to work really hard in my major, but I also had that fallback of already being accepted to vet school, which was just a great sense of security as well. My name is Wenzdae Wendling. I'm from Wolcott, Vermont. I'm an animal science major with a minor in equine studies. I was incredibly excited about my academics and really focused on my academics, but wasn't really thinking much outside of that for extracurricular activities. I was, picking a college based off of what they offered academically. And I think I was really pleasantly surprised by the number of extracurricular activities that I was able to get into. I was an illustrator for the Cynic here on campus, so that was really fun to do. I was actually convinced by my roommate, who was a writer for the Cynic, to join. And I'm an animal science major, so I'm in STEM, I'm in science, and I just like to draw on the side, and I had never really joined any groups that were part of drawing. I hadn't taken any drawing classes or anything like that, so that was a really great just touch on top to do something out of my normal curriculum and something I hadn't really done before that didn't have a lot of pressure associated with it, and I could really just be involved when I had the time. I was reading other students' articles and then working with them on what they wanted their article to represent and how they wanted that to come through in an image, which is very different than my science classes, obviously, which is mostly memorization and then spit it back out, and that's how you learn. Right. That's how you learn science. So it was a really great opportunity to apply my critical thinking in that way and expand on some of the stuff that I had learned in the honors college, which didn't necessarily relate to what my major was about. Sophomore year, I joined the Nordic Club, and I'd done a bunch of Nordic skiing in high school, and I met a lot of really great people through that. And then at the end of Nordic season, a bunch of the kids were actually continuing on to the cycling team to do road races in the spring. So I joined that as well and did road racing, which I had never done before, and it was a crazy experience, but it was really fun to be with those same people, and I really made a great group of friends doing that. And then we were doing off-season training together and spending a lot of time doing all of that. And then my junior year, I was accepted into the UVM Horse Barn Co-op. So I was able to bring my horse to college, which was fabulous. And that was a really big time commitment. I have to be there every single day of the week to do my stall, and I have multiple chores a week, but it was fabulous. And I met a ton of great people through that as well. And then senior year, I joined the equestrian team, and now we're going to compete at nationals, which is just a crazy way to round out my time at UVM. I've been animal science this whole time. I recently added the equine studies minor, but yeah, stayed right on track to be animal science pre-vet. There are classes that are required as prerequisites for veterinary school, but by taking the animal science major here, you're taking a lot of additional classes on top of those that still prepare you really well to go into school. So one of those being advanced animal nutrition, which I really loved. I took last year. We work hands-on with mice, cows, and chickens down at the farm, and that's not a prerequisite for vet school, but I learned so much about digestion and how we feed our animals, and especially looking towards livestock, how we formulate diets and stuff like that. And when vet schools are looking to accept students, it's really a great bonus to have all of that additional information. And I think the program itself is also very competitive. Veterinary schools know that coming from UVM, especially with the degree in animal science, you've taken not one but two classes on animal nutrition. You took a class on animal ethics. You've already taken anatomy and physiology. And going back to the hands-on experience, we have the farm here, the Miller Farm, which runs the cream barns. We have opportunities to work with the horses at the Ellen Hardacre Center. Yeah, so fall of junior year, I took equine training techniques, and through that class, we were actually able to go to the Morgan Horse Farm and worked with them, and actually worked hands-on with the yearlings that they had there, and got to learn some of their training techniques, how they work with those horses, how they really start, deciding what those horses are, what their future jobs might be based on their conformation from a really young age. And it was really cool to have that opportunity because I had never worked with such young horses. Because horses, you train them from a young age, but they don't stop growing until they're 6. And I hadn't really worked with horses that were any younger than the age of like 8 until I had that opportunity. And that was very cool because I don't have the experience to take a baby horse and train it all the way up, but it was cool to dip my toe in. That was one of the reasons I chose UVM, was because I wanted to do animal science, but I didn't want to do animal science just in the classroom or just from a textbook. I wanted to do animal science with my hands as well. And I mean, I would say most people would learn better from getting that hands-on experience. So I think the veterinary schools really noticed that about students coming from UVM. And academics were fabulous too, and I've learned so much in stuff that applies to my career and also just other random classes I've taken, especially through the Honors College. I talked a lot with my Honors College advisors about how to get into research, and the main thing they really said was just reach out to your professors. Like, they're great people and they want to have undergrads working in their labs. So I was taking animal genetics with Dr. McKay, and towards the end of the semester, it was the fall of my sophomore year, I just went up to her after class and I was like, Dr. McKay, like, if you have any room, I would love to come join your lab. I'm really interested in genetics. And they were doing a lot of DNA research and DNA extractions, and she immediately was like, yeah, just come join. So I think it's a really daunting task when you arrive as a freshman. Like, I want to do research, but I don't know how to get into it. From my experience and what I've heard from a lot of my peers was just a lot of the professors are so welcoming and so excited to have undergrads working in their lab. So yeah, I just reached out to her and she was like, yeah, come join. And I got some training in DNA extractions. I had to do like a trial, about a week of just pipetting practice before I was able to start doing that. My thesis was the illustrated guide to pre-veterinary equine lameness. So I made an illustrated resource for students in the class lameness in horses to use. It focused on simplifying down the anatomical concepts that you had to learn in that class. Because I found when taking the class that a lot of the resources were either images or diagrams that were mainly used for veterinary students, and at the level of an undergrad that we were trying to learn the information, it was just way too complicated. So my professor would either cross out a bunch of stuff or highlight just the little stuff that we needed. So my thesis was making a resource, like a mini textbook, for that class, making my own illustrations of anatomy and labeling it and doing that. I had been working in Dr. McKay's animal genetics lab for a little bit, and I loved working in the lab as well. But I really wanted to find a way to combine my passions outside of the classroom with what I was learning in class, and that really stemmed from that art that I had been doing with the Cynic and had been working on outside of class. It was really cool to make this creative project that was all my own, that I really worked on completely independently. I checked in with my thesis advisor, but I wasn't doing it on campus. I was doing it at home or wherever I was, doing a lot of it digitally. But I was able to combine like those passions with what I was learning in class, and it was really fun to do. I had a great time doing it. I tell everybody that Cal's is the best college, especially, I can't speak for the other departments, but animal science is just great, and a lot of the professors are so welcoming. I haven't had a professor who wasn't welcoming, but a lot of the professors are really eager to talk to you outside of class. They really want you to come to their office hours, and they're very excited when students are passionate about their work. I really did have a chance to connect with my professors in Cal's and in my animal science classes, which is different than my gen eds, my bio, and my chemistry classes that I took, which were required classes, but you didn't really have that chance to connect with your professors. I've had my eye on sports medicine and rehabilitation for a while, hopefully equine science. I took lameness in horses here at UVM with Dr. Jenny Wilkinson, which is a fabulous class. Got to learn a lot of hands-on skills, and we spent a lot of time at the barn through that class in our lab, so that was pretty cool. But not exactly sure what I want to do, but leaning towards working with horses. I'm planning to defer school for a year. I'm going to be working with a renowned dressage trainer in New Hampshire as a working student, so learning from her, doing some showing in dressage, really excited, and also just taking a little bit of time off from school because I have never taken a gap year before or anything. And then ideally starting at Tufts next year, maybe in